My name is Michael. I'm 34 years old. I live in Ohio, and for most of my life, I felt like a supporting character in my own story. The star of our family has always been my older sister, Jessica. She's 4 years older, and if you asked our parents, she practically hung the moon. She was the charming, gregarious one, the kind of person who could talk her way into or out of anything. I, on the other hand, got cast as the responsible one, which sounds like a compliment, but is really a job description for the person who does the heavy lifting while the star takes a bow. Growing up, the disparity hummed constantly in the background. Jessica's birthdays were legendary neighborhood events. One year, it was a bounce castle shaped like a medieval fortress. Another, a professional magician who made a live rabbit appear and then somehow convinced our mother to hire him again just for the adults. My birthdays were quiet. Takeout pizza, a grocery store sheet cake, and a few friends at the dining room table. Christmas told the same story. The year Jessica got the sprawling Barbie dream house, I unwrapped a generic, off-brand science kit with 2 empty vials where the required chemicals should have been. The refrain was always the same. "You don't need flashy stuff, Michael," my mother would say. "Be grateful for what you have." And I was. But I couldn't ignore the quiet math of it. Somehow, Jessica's gratitude was never a prerequisite for her receiving the best of everything. The real chasm opened when it was time for college. I loaded my schedule with APs, packed in activities, and maintained a top GPA. I earned a spot at a good state university nearby, and I had a sensible plan. Commute from home, save a fortune on room and board. Jessica had been sent to her dream private college out of state, and my parents proudly footed the entire bill. I assumed they'd offer some support, too. At a family dinner, I laid out my plan. My mother stared like I'd just announced I was joining a traveling circus. "If you're going to be living under this roof as an adult," she said, clipped and businesslike, "you'll need to contribute to the household." My father nodded. "Jessica earned her support from us. It's time for you to learn financial responsibility." I was 18 years old, and they were talking about charging me rent. Contribute, it turned out, meant $500 a month for my room and utilities. I'd cover my own food and expenses. For a freshman making $12 an hour at a campus coffee shop, it was a mountain. I tried reasoning with them, pointing out the hypocrisy of financing Jessica's experience down to her dorm decor while I figured out how to pay for everything myself. My mother shrugged. "We gave Jessica what she needed to succeed. You're different, Michael, more independent. You'll figure it out." And so I did. I became a master of small economies. I mapped a 4-year cash flow on a yellow legal pad and stuck to it like a training plan. I took every shift at the cafe, often working late after a full day of classes, the burnt espresso smell clinging to my clothes like a second sweater. I skipped lunches to save money, living on end-of-shift bagels destined for the trash. Ramen, peanut butter sandwiches, used textbooks, library reference copies. Every month, like clockwork, I handed my parents $500 while Jessica called home in tears because her dorm's air conditioning was loud. I would sit in my 10-year-old sedan, the vinyl seats sticking to my skin in the summer heat because I couldn't afford the $700 AC repair, and listen to our mother coo over the phone. "We just don't want you to struggle, sweetie. College is stressful enough." The question rose like steam. Why did their compassion only flow one way? When Jessica finished her communications degree with a 3.1, they threw a lavish graduation party, rented hall, caterer, a guest list fat with acquaintances I hadn't seen since middle school. When I graduated with a 3.8 in computer science, my celebration was a quiet dinner at home. My mom made a pot roast and said, "Well, we know you don't like a big fuss." It felt like competence was a punishment, an excuse to overlook me. As soon as I landed my first software development job, I moved out. I found a cramped, overpriced apartment and started building a life on my own terms. I set a savings target for a down payment and automated transfers the day my first paycheck hit. Meanwhile, Jessica married Kevin, a man my parents adored despite his chronic inability to keep a job for more than a season, and they had 3 children: Olivia, 6, Noah, 5, and Liam, 3. My parents became their safety net. A check for a new minivan when the old one died, babysitting every weekend because marriage needs romance, and a standing offer to help with bills in a pinch. I wish I could say it stopped bothering me. It didn't. No matter what I accomplished, I was still in second place. So I learned to keep major details of my life to myself. If they knew, they'd find a way to make it about Jessica. After years of paying ridiculous rent for a glorified closet and saving with almost obsessive discipline, I decided it was time to buy a house. I'd scraped together a solid down payment, and my credit was clean. I deserved this. I wanted a door I could lock behind me and a set of keys that were mine alone. I told no one in my family. Not out of pettiness, defense. My wins never stayed mine. They became communal property to be assessed and repurposed. Of course, my plan didn't survive contact with the real world. At work, a coworker, let's call her Sarah, mentioned to a friend that I was looking at properties. Sarah collects personal details like it's a hobby. Before I knew it, my news had traveled through the small city grapevine that connects her friend to Jessica's best friend, spreading with the speed of a rumor eager to be true. A few days later, my mother called, her voice syrupy with manufactured cheer. "Michael, why didn't you tell us you were looking for a house?" "I'm just browsing listings, Mom. Nothing serious." "That's wonderful," she trilled, ignoring the caution. "You'll need a place big enough for everyone. At least 5 bedrooms, for when the kids visit, of course." I stared at my phone. "What kids?" She kept going. "Space for us when we stay. Close to Jessica's neighborhood. It would make everything so much easier." In 30 seconds, she'd turned my milestone into a communal asset. I made an excuse and hung up, hoping it was a passing fantasy. It wasn't. The floodgates opened. My mother and Jessica began sending a dozen links a day, 5- and 6-bedroom houses with pools, 3-car garages, home theaters, listings that looked like they cost the GDP of a small nation. The kids would love this yard. Finished basement, Kevin's man cave, in-law suite for Mom and Dad. They weren't even subtle. Every feature was for them. I reminded them I'm a single man looking for a small, manageable place. They doubled down. "Don't be short-sighted, Michael. Family is the future." So I disengaged. I muted their threads and let Zillow links pile up like junk mail. Meanwhile, I searched in secret. Weeknights turned into listing marathons, weekends into low-key open house runs, safely distant from Jessica's side of town. After several weeks, I found it. A modest, charming 2-bedroom bungalow on a quiet street just outside the city. A small porch perfect for a breakfast, a bright kitchen with updated appliances, a backyard just large enough for the vegetable garden I'd wanted since watching my neighbor, Mr. Klein, coax tomatoes from unpromising soil when I was 8. Not a mansion, but the instant I crossed the threshold, I knew this was home. I put in an offer. The days until an answer stretched like taffy, but then the call came. Accepted. Relief and quiet triumph washed over me. For the first time in 34 years, I had done something monumental entirely for myself. No committee, no caveats. Closing would be in 10 days. One wrong move and my fragile peace could crack, but I kept silent. Except the silent part didn't last. My mother called to announce a family dinner on Friday. I almost declined. Then I pictured the inevitable planning session. They'd spring on me sooner or later. Binders, laminated tabs, a color-coded spreadsheet, and decided to walk into the lion's den on my terms. I'd say my piece and leave. Friday at 7, chaos hit like a wall. Jessica's kids tore through the living room. Kevin melted into the couch watching football, and my mother conducted 3 pots on the stove. "Oh, good," she said when I stepped in. "You're on time for once." Stellar start. Dinner was deceptively normal for 6 minutes. Gas prices. Kevin's latest boss. Jessica sighed about motherhood. "We're so cramped in that apartment. Liam won't sleep. I'm losing my mind." She laid the runway for the main event. My mother cleared her throat, the same theatrical signal she used before announcements. "Michael," she said brightly, "we think we've found the perfect house for you." I nearly choked on my water. "Oh," I asked, noncommittal. "It's gorgeous," Jessica chimed in, eyes shining. "A few streets from us. 5 bedrooms, huge yard, a guest suite out back." "It's perfect for everyone," my mother added. "Enough space for the kids to have their own rooms. Kevin could set up a proper office. And the school district." "So," Jessica said, "we can go see it tomorrow morning." That was it. I set my fork down. "Actually, that won't be necessary. I already bought a house." Silence. The television seemed to mute itself. My father looked up, surprised. My mother's smile froze, then collapsed. "What?" she snapped, voice brittle. "I bought a house. I said evenly. A small two-bedroom bungalow just outside the city. It's perfect for me. For a naive second, I thought they might be happy. Then my mother flushed, and Jessica's jaw went slack. A bungalow? Jessica sputtered. How are we supposed to fit in a bungalow? You're not, I said. Because it's my house. I bought it for me. How could you make a life-altering decision without consulting us? My mother demanded. We've been working tirelessly to find the perfect place for you. You've been shopping for Jessica's solution on my dime, I replied. I didn't need your help. I knew what I wanted and got it. But we need this, Michael. Jessica cried. Do you know how hard it is in that tiny apartment? Olivia and Noah share a room, and Liam's crib is in ours. That isn't my problem, I said. I've worked my entire adult life to get here. I'm not sacrificing my dream to fix your living situation. My father slammed his fist on the table, silverware jumping. You're being selfish. Family helps each other. What is wrong with you? I pushed my chair back and stood, heart pounding like a fist against drywall. I'm not being selfish. For the first time in my life, I'm standing up for myself. If that makes me the bad guy in this family, so be it. The room collapsed into noise. Jessica's tears, my mother's outrage, my father's disappointed growl. Kevin shoveled food like a man determined to finish his plate before the apocalypse. I grabbed my keys. My mother followed me into the hall, calling after me. You can't walk away from your family like this. Watch me, I said and left. In the days after, the house felt too quiet, like the air had been emptied of pressure and didn't know how to hold itself. At work, I reviewed code, pretending that debugging a faulty algorithm could somehow smooth out the sharp edges in my own head. Sarah drifted to my desk with a bright, innocent smile and asked where the house was. I said I was keeping that private. She laughed. I'm not going to show up with a casserole. You won't, I said, because you won't know the address. The smile wilted. I didn't mean, I know you didn't, I said, but harm happened. Boundaries set. No committee vote required. At night, I drove by the bungalow and parked across the street. Porch light on. Maple tree etching shadows across the lawn. Back home, 8 messages waited from my mother. What you did was cruel. We are your family. You can still fix this. Let's talk about a larger house we can all enjoy. The 9th was a photo of a 6-bedroom farmhouse captioned, a place to grow. I put my phone face down and made pasta. I ate standing at the counter and tried to imagine a fight that didn't need to be fought. I couldn't. So I opened my laptop and wrote, Mom, Dad, Jessica, I'm writing this down to make sure I'm being perfectly clear. I bought a 2-bedroom bungalow for myself. It is not a shared resource. I won't be hosting long-term stays. I won't be moving closer to anyone. I won't be upgrading to serve anyone else's needs. Going forward, please don't send listings or ideas. If you need more space, that is between the 3 of you. I will not fund, co-sign, or house your solutions. I love you. I'm also done being drafted into jobs I did not apply for. Michael. I read it, removed the word please, put it back in, and hit send. A 1-line reply from my father arrived minutes later. Call me. I didn't. The next day I closed. I signed until my name looked forged. The title officer slid keys across the table. Congratulations. First home. First home that's mine, I said. The bungalow's lock turned with a small, sure click, a sound I wanted to save. In the backyard, I mapped tomatoes along the fence, basil near the steps, maybe a raised bed for peppers. I was on my knees painting blue tape along baseboards when there was a knock. A particular rhythm, the one my mother used when I was a kid because it sounded, in her words, polite but firm. Michael. Her voice seeped through the door, sticky with apology and siege. We just want to see the place. It's just us, she said. And Jessica. And the boys. And Kevin is parking. I opened the door 6 inches. They were a diorama of expectations. Mother with a plastic tub of snickerdoodles. Jessica wearing an expression that said she'd forgiven me for something I didn't ask forgiveness for. The kids. Kevin attempting a neighborly half-wave. I sent an email, I said. Emails are so cold, my mother answered. We thought we'd make this warm. Warmth isn't a key that opens this door, I said. I'm not taking visitors today. Jessica rolled her eyes. We just want to see. It's not like we're moving in. One boy craned his neck and peered past me. Is that our room? I looked at my sister. She didn't meet my eyes. We're leaving, I said. I'm painting. Please go. From the steps, my father's voice slid in, quiet and heavy. You're a disgrace. After everything we did for you. You charged me rent for 4 years while paying for Jessica's dorm and sending her an allowance, I said. If that's everything, your everything is miscalibrated. My mother's smile finally cracked. We raised you, she said, as if it were a debt I could never repay. You did, I said. I'll take care of myself now. I closed the door. They knocked again. I turned on a podcast about Japan and kept taping baseboards. 15 minutes later, a text arrived. We'll come back when you've cooled off. I replied, don't. I won't open the door. I won't explain this again. After they left, I bought a doormat. It said hello in cheerful cursive. Boundaries can say hello, I thought. They just don't let you stay. On Sunday, in a burst of uncharacteristic decisiveness, I booked a single therapy session. I told the therapist I needed language that stayed solid when my family's storms hit. She gave me 3. That won't work for me. I can't do that, but I can do X. If you continue, I'll end the conversation. You don't need to perform, she said. You only need to be yourself. I left lighter. I stopped by a nursery and bought 2 tomato seedlings and a basil plant because I wanted my kitchen to smell like a decision. That evening, Jessica called. Against my better judgment, I answered. We shouldn't have shown up, she said. Mom insisted. You showed up, I said. Silence stretched. Then she exhaled. I'm sorry. She paused. Could the kids come see it? Just a quick visit. They're curious. That won't work for me, I said. The sentence felt steady. Not now? Maybe later, on my terms. Okay, she said quietly. Later then. Jess, I added, if you and Kevin need more space, that's yours to solve. I'm not your emergency exit. I know, she said, and for a second I believed she did. Mom makes it feel like there's a group credit card somewhere. There isn't, I said. Not in my wallet. A week later, I hauled the last box into the bungalow. I ate a slice of pizza on the floor because chairs were theoretical. I put the tomatoes in the ground and set the basil by the steps. I assembled a pine bookshelf with an Allen wrench that disliked me personally and plugged in a lamp that made a warm cone on the wall. At 9, one gentle knock, the kind you use to bring something back. I checked the peephole. My father. Alone. A paper bag in one hand, an unfamiliar posture of uncertainty in the other. I opened the door. He looked past me into the entryway, as if expecting a chorus line of reasons to stay angry. Finding none seemed to confuse him. He held out the bag. Inside was a red metal toolbox. Scuffed paint. A dent on the lid shaped like an old memory. I recognized it. The toolbox from our garage when I was a kid, the one he kept under the pegboard like a shrine. I don't have money for you, he said gruffly, eyes on his shoes. But a house needs tools. A dozen responses paraded through my head. I chose the simplest one that stood on its own feet. Thank you. He nodded once. The muscles in his jaw ticked. You closed without us. I did. Your mother, he began, and the sentence swerved off the road. We didn't do right by you. Not all the time. He said it like a man confessing to a mirror. If you need help with shelves, or whatever, he added, almost angrily. Ask. I'll ask if I need it, I said. If I don't, I won't. Fair, he said, and turned to go. Dad, I said. He looked back. Tomatoes by the fence. I told him, because I didn't know how to say, thank you for bringing me the thing you never let anyone touch. They'll need cages. He huffed, nearly a laugh. I'll bring some from the shed. He walked to his truck and left. I placed the toolbox on the entry table, and as my hand swept across the lid, it felt like acknowledging an old wound, one that had long since healed into a cherished scar. My phone lit up with a storm of texts, my mom lobbying, the whole clan chiming in, the old family chorus calling me selfish, ungrateful, and destined for regret. I muted the thread. In the morning, I'd buy tomato cages. If Dad brought his, I'd use them. If he didn't, I'd use mine. Either way, the tomatoes would stand. Summer moved forward. At work, my manager Priya asked if I wanted to lead a greenfield tool we'd been kicking around for 9 months, a lightweight internal service to audit cloud spend in real time. You're organized and stubborn in the right ways, she said. We need stubborn. I took the project, and for the first time in a long time, stubborn felt like a virtue, not a verdict. On Saturdays, I walked to the farmer's market for peaches and learned my neighborhood by its porches. Ms. Alvarez kept 3 clay pots of geraniums like punctuation marks. The guy on the corner always set out a chessboard and never had an opponent. I waved. He nodded. Sometimes you recognize a person by the shape of their solitude. Jessica texted occasionally. A picture of the kids with gap-toothed grins. A link to an apartment listing in a better school district. Once, a simple "how's the house?" I sent a photo of the porch at golden hour. She replied with a heart and no follow-up. It felt like a truce we'd both agreed to enforce. My mother stayed theatrical by text. "It would be so healthy for you to host Sunday dinners. We can help with the cooking." I copied a sentence from my therapist's script and pasted it. "With love, that won't work for me." When she replied, "You'll regret shutting us out when you're old and alone," I typed, "I'm not shutting you out. I'm enforcing a boundary you repeatedly try to cross." I didn't send it. I put my phone down and watered the basil. One evening, I sat on the porch, reading the manual for a drill from the toolbox. I'd promised myself floating shelves, and learning how felt like a form of ownership. When I finished, I looked at my house and felt, for the first time in a long time, the clean edge of peace. I wish I could say that everything with my family transformed because I finally drew a line. It didn't. Systems resist change by design. But lines changed me. That won't work for me. I can't do that, but I can do X. If you continue, I'll end the conversation. The sentences were small, like pocket tools. Used often enough, they built something sturdy. 3 months after closing, I hosted my first guest, myself. After making pasta with fresh basil, I polished the old red toolbox until it shined and carried it to the porch. The porch light clicked on, the chessboard guy waved, and I waved back. I realized then how many years I'd spent auditioning for roles I didn't want, when the one I truly wanted was smaller and truer. The man who locks his own door and knows which part of himself belongs to no one else. That isn't lonely. It's mine. The kids did, eventually, visit. It was on my terms, a sun-drenched Sunday afternoon built for the backyard, where their energy could be an explosion of joy instead of a siege on my peace. They tore through the grass in wild orbits, and Liam, pointing a chubby finger, asked if the tomatoes were green apples that are still too shy to be red. I glanced at Jessica, who stood on the porch steps, a quiet observer in my new world. She never once said "we" or "our." She just watched her children play in their uncle's yard, and in her silence, I felt a flicker of a truce. When they left, Noah wrapped his arms around my leg. "This porch is a good place for popsicles," he declared, a verdict of pure truth. He was right. A week later, 2 tomato cages were leaning against my fence. There was no note. There didn't need to be. It was a message in the silent, functional dialect that fathers and sons use when the words cost too much. That toolbox he gave me has a deep scratch on the lid that looks like a river carving through a map. For years, I would have assumed it was a scar from a moment of anger. Now I see it as a mark of use, a story of building and fixing and trying again. A family is that toolbox, I think. You inherit it all, the sharp edges, the rusted hinges, the tools that fit your hand perfectly. You learn what to salvage and what to leave behind. My father and I are learning. We're not fixed, but we are in repair. He stops by with bags of screws he calls the good kind, and I make coffee. We talk about the grain of wood instead of the grain of our history. "You were always good at plans," he said once, unprompted. "I was good at following yours," I told him. He just nodded, as if I'd pointed out the direction of the wind. That's our progress. Small truths, stated without argument, and non-apologies that almost count. My mother remains a force of nature, a habit of concern that feels more like a weather pattern. The listings still arrive in texts, links to sprawling houses for a life I'm not living. I don't argue anymore. I just send back a picture of the tomatoes, ripening on the vine. "We're having BLTs, all right." She'll reply with a heart and a note that her grandkids would love a sandbox. I entertain the thought of building one for her, in her yard. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Love, I'm learning, is sometimes a fence you have to keep painted, a boundary that looks like care. People think my revolution was a declaration at a dinner table. But the real turning point wasn't a bang. It was a click. The soft, mechanical sound of my own key turning in my own lock. In that quiet, I understood my life wasn't a committee. There was no vote. I was the one in charge. Down the street, the chessboard guy finally found a partner, a kid in a band t-shirt. I watched them play under the evening light, and I thought about the game. It's not always about attacking. Sometimes, the most important strategy is knowing how to protect your king. That click of the lock was me, finally learning how to keep my king safe. I am not the hero of an epic. My story is smaller and truer for it. It's the story of a man who went to work, saved his money, and learned that a handful of sentences can rebuild a world. That won't work for me. This is my house. They are not legend. They are practice. I come home at night, and the quiet is no longer empty. It's full. It sounds like a page turning, smells like basil and cut pine. It's the scent of a dream that learned to pay its own bills. The tomatoes are almost red. When they're ready, I will make sauce in my own pot. I will set my table and invite exactly who I want. And there will be enough chairs, because I'm the one who decides how many to buy. I may still be the responsible one, but now I'm responsible to myself. I am the lead in this story, and the role, at last, truly fits.